search for ways to include creativity and the visual arts and dramatic arts in ministry, whether in spiritual development or worship or anything else. And I love using improv as one of those tools. I first learned about improv at Church of the Pilgrims in my internship. It was just so much fun.
Yeah, so tell me about some actual improv practice you've had, or times you've actually engaged in improv.
One of the exercises we did earlier with Pilgrims, I remember, was the "What are you doing?" Where people are, you have to act out something different than what is said. If I remember correctly.
Yeah. Somebody comes up and you're doing something, and you say you're doing something else that they then have to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And trying to think through the two things, and it's hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned just improv being a place where you just laugh together with other people, and I think one of the resistances that people feel is that I need to go into it and be funny. Like I'm not funny. I don't do comedy, and I'm curious how you square that kind of resistance with the fact that you were with people. I mean, you did laugh.
Right.
So how does that end up playing out in real life when you do improv?
Yeah. I think it's less about being funny and more about just being in the moment. And when I've tried to share improv exercises with other groups, that's one of the things I'll say, like, this isn't comedy theater, it's just, we're just together doing something. I like the idea too of like, going in, like entering a scene or whatnot as a way to help the person that's in the scene already, rather than taking the attention for yourself kind of thing.
Right, yes. It's a servant-based art form, because there are some strains of improv where your job is to take care of yourself, and everybody's job is to take care of themselves. And if everybody's doing that, then you can do fun things because no one's going to do anything they're not comfortable with. But where I learned improv and where I've experienced it, it really is, my job is to make you look good and to have a good time, right? And sometimes that means like giving you a yes and that you'd be like, okay, whatever, and pushing you out of your comfort zone, but in a way that is mutual and playful and not kind of hanging you out to dry. Because I'll be there for you when you do whatever the crazy thing is. Yes. So it's a wonderful gift.
The whole thing kind of felt like a pressure valve releasing. I remember there was this one point, I can't remember what the prompt was, but we ended up screaming, and I scared myself with my scream, because I'm so quiet usually. I was like, what does everybody else think? But it was just so guttural, but it was this release, and I had no idea it was in there.
How have you seen improv at work in your own life?
The biggest example is with my dad. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease about the same time I was learning about improv at Pilgrims, and it quickly just became one of my best coping tools for his dementia, because he would enter into his own reality as he lost memories and lost logic and judgment. And as a daughter watching that, you want to say, no, Dad, come back. This is the right answer. This is reality. And that just frustrates him, frustrates you, and it's on and on and on. And instead, trying to be like, yes, you called me a mermaid, and I love to swim. I'll go with it. I may have not used improv so much in my interaction with him, but just with the situation in general. This is how bad he's gotten. Okay, we're going to find the right facility for him. The facility's not perfect, but we're going to supplement it this way, a different version of yes and.
So finding the best yes and possible in each kind of particular instance. Is yes and with someone who's dealing with dementia, is there an opportunity to see that as a playful interaction? Or is it just kind of, it's your only option, so you might as well go with it? But does it give you an opportunity to just enjoy one another in a different kind of way?
Yeah, I think it does. It helps bring some levity and just because everything feels so serious. There's so much loss. One of the things they say is that people remember how you make them feel more than what you say to them, especially when you have dementia. And so avoiding that sense of, my dad's doing something wrong, and he was a perfectionist, so he never wanted to get anything wrong. The examples that are easier to remember are the more extreme ones from when he was in the hospital and on medication he shouldn't have been on, and so he was hallucinating. But so like at one point he was seeing lights in front of him that the rest of us couldn't see, and he'd be waving like, oh, I have to flip this switch or something, and we wanted him to stay in his hospital bed. So I'd just be like, oh, like, is it this switch? You know, which one? And I'll do it for you. And
so not just acknowledging his reality, but actually participating in it and being a player. We talk a lot in improv about just getting into the action. Did that kind of alleviate? I mean, was he able to go with it? I mean, he's like, yeah, that one.
Yeah, it might have come up again later, but like in the moment, that was enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting thought too, is just thinking about you really are just what will work in this present moment, because the next moment could be completely different.
Exactly.
Yeah. There aren't a lot of hard and fast rules in improv, but generally questions can kind of get you in trouble because they don't move action forward. I mean, there are games where you do nothing but questions, but in general, you want to make statements. And I'm thinking about people with dementia, and one of the things that raises their anxiety is when you know, do you know who I am, or you know, what day is it? Right? Do you remember such and such? And it's an interesting thing to think about that. Just make an offer, which may just be I love you, or you know, I'm glad to see you, rather than trying to interrogate. It just moves the relationship forward, which is really
exactly
where the action is.
Yeah.